state of existence, untouched and uninfluenced by artificial ingredients. The beauty of the human form has always attempted to imitate, supplement, or enhance the work of nature. Today, in the English countryside, beauty, nature, and superior human effort collide as the best names come together for the title of all-around queen at the European Women's Gymnastics Championships presented by State Farm. Our coverage of this four-event battle begins on the vault with 17-year-old from Ukraine, Lilia Podkopayeva. She won the world all-around title in Sabai, Japan last year. This is her first of two vaults.
Very difficult vault. Highly complex and well done. Off to a great start. The technique required for this vault is highly complicated. Half twist on, front pike with a half off, and she even keeps her toes pointed throughout.
You can see why she tied for the World Championship in '95 on this event. Very complex vault, and she does it with such clean form. It's very, very impressive.
9.787 on her first vault.
John, she seems so uptight during the preliminary competition. It's nice to see her start this competition very aggressively. Keep in mind, the gymnasts must perform two vaults. They average the score both vaults, so this one is critical.
The technique on this vault was incredible, and it's amazing she's coming back from an injury. In March, she fell off the balance beam and broke a rib, but it doesn't look like it's bothering her here.
And it certainly isn't bothering the judges as they give her a 9.825 for the second vault, a two-vault average of 9.806. Welcome, everyone, to the National Exhibition Center in Birmingham, England, site of the 1996 Women's European Gymnastics Championships presented by State Farm. Hi, everyone. I'm John Neighbor, and today the finest women's gymnasts in the continent are competing for the all-around title. Joining me is Kathy Johnson-Clark, and Kathy, with the Olympics just a couple of months away, this is gearing up to be a very special season for these athletes.
John, though many of the gymnasts are in a sense training through this competition, they are by no means taking this lightly. In fact, until the mid-'80s, when the United States and China came on so strong, all the greatest women gymnasts in the world were in Europe. So they often said they had three meets of equal importance: the Olympics, the World, and the Europeans. If we take a look at a couple of the contenders here in the all-around, Lilia Podkopayeva is the reigning world all-around champion. She looks a little uptight, almost as if she's trying too hard to defend her title. Simona Amanar looks the most comfortable doing very difficult routines, and she's only been at this level of competition for 2 years now. One interesting point in terms of the significance of this competition, Nadia Comaneci, who won the 1976 Olympic Games, has often said one of her proudest moments was winning the European Championships, which she did 3 times in a row.
Of course, it should also be noted that Nadia, known most for her perfect tens at the 1976 Games, also recently had another very proud moment, and that was her marriage in Romania to American Bart Connor, our fellow analyst here in the booth. It was a state affair almost equal to a coronation in terms of the politicians and dignitaries in attendance, virtually a royal wedding. And Bart, of course, now that you've married Nadia Comaneci, she is the queen of gymnastics. You get to be the king of gymnastics. And, of course, in Romania, gymnastics is almost a national pastime.
It certainly is, and I believe that they approach the sport a little bit differently than some of the other countries here. It'll be an interesting contrast because the Romanians say, hey, this is a competition. There are medals to be won. So they design their routines to be very consistent and ones that they can hit almost every time in competition because they want to bring medals home to Romania. Now, the other countries like Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, and even France, they approach the sport with a little more interest in the artistry of gymnastics. So it'll be interesting to see the battle between the artists and the athletes today. Certainly one of the most famous artists of all time in gymnastics is 23-year-old Svetlana Boginskaya, who won this competition back in 1989 as well as 1990. The fact that she's a contender here in 1996 is a real tribute to her artistry.
So let's go to the uneven bars with Boginskaya. She left Belarus to train with Bela Karolyi in Houston for a couple of years, has now just recently returned to Minsk as part of her pre-Olympic training.
John, it's ironic that in 1991, Bella Karolyi said the era of Svetlana Baginskaya is over when she lost the World Championships, and here he ended up being a part of her remarkable comeback to this day.
No one can outperform Svetlana. Look at her form. Perfect toe point throughout the entire routine. Legs straight. Body line is incredible. And this is new for her. A big dismount, double layout. Absolutely beautiful. Though she lacks a little in difficulty, this dismount is tremendous and will help her score. No deductions there.
And the judges give it a 9.825. That will be the score to beat on this apparatus. When we return, we'll see another tall, glamorous performer in Svetlana Horkina, the Russian who earned the all-around silver captain, 17-year-old Svetlana Horkina. She won a silver medal on vault at the 94 Worlds, and that's the first event she'll be competing here. She already earned a 9.725 on her first attempt.
This is a very difficult vault. It's similar to Podkopayeva's, except right here she'll half turn first and then do the backflip. Beautifully done.
We're often talking about what an amazingly elegant, artistic gymnast she is, but sometimes we forget what an incredible athlete she is, too. Great performance and nice landing.
Second vault earns a 9.775 for a 9.75 average. Now we move over to the balance beam, where 16-year-old Romanian Simona Amenar awaits. She was her country's all-around runner-up at last year's Nationals.
She has some of the hardest routines in the competition, and during the preliminaries she looks so comfortable performing them. Four elements right down the length of the balance beam, including two layouts.
You're right, Kathy. Even though she is doing very difficult combinations, they seem easy for her.
They seem very easy. So much of it is the Romanian training method. Oh, little break there, though. It's interesting to watch the gymnasts regain their composure after a slight break and immediately pull themselves back in and focus.
She's best known for her work on the floor and the vault. As you'll see in this dismount, she's quite a powerful tumbler.
She tumbles right down the beam, two back handsprings. Ooh, a step on the landing. With Podkopayeva competing so aggressively, it's going to be hard to beat her with performances like that. In a sport that is so unforgiving, when the slightest mistakes are made, no apologies necessary here. Look how she keeps her shoulders, her hips perfectly in line with the beam on the most difficult of elements.
In addition to her raw power, the beam is spring-loaded, so she really gets a good takeoff for that double-back dismount.
And Amenar earns a 9.612, the high score so far on balance beam. Perhaps this facility looks familiar to you because ABC's cameras have been here before at the NEC, or National Exhibition Center. Wide World of Sports coverage of gymnastics was here in Birmingham in 1993 for the World Gymnastics Championships, where American Shannon Miller stole the show and some hearts, winning 3 gold medals, including 1 in the all-around. She went on to become the first American in history to win 2 world all-around titles. But it was at those World Championships in 1993 that the Romanian Lavinia Milosevic won the gold on balance beam, and that's where we find her now.
She has been so successful through the years. She introduced that mount several years ago, and at the time it was revolutionary. This is probably her weakest event in terms of level of difficulty and composition. However, you can usually depend on her to be perfect in her execution.
Velocity earned 4 medals at the Olympics in Barcelona.
Very nice pass. The same one we saw from her teammate, Simona Amanar.
As many successes as she has had, including 13 medals at the World Championships, one title that has eluded her is a major all-around title. She has a shot at one today.
Like Simona, she's already had one slight balance break. Not a significant deduction. But I think the winner of this meet is going to have to be near perfect. This is by far the nicest pass in the whole routine. Back handspring layout, and she repeats it, back handspring layout, one right after the other. See how strong she goes after that landing.
And the judges give her a 9.637 for her beam routine. And so the scores after the first rotation shows the unlikely leader, the 23-year-old Svetlana Boginskaya, with the high score on the uneven bars. Podkopaeva and Horkina round out your top 3. Rotation number 2 when our coverage continues from Birmingham, England. After one rotation. In second, Lilia Podkopaeva, now on bars, where she won gold at the 95 European Cup.
And we have seen a transformation from the preliminary competition to today. She has become aggressive. She's going after everything. Oh, a slight leg separation, but in the past, the judges have been very lenient with that and not really taken off a lot. She needs a perfect landing. Oh, a little low. You can see her chest is right down on her knees.
She really struggled in the workout sessions here, and she seems to be really turning on, as you mentioned, Kathy. This was the weakest part. She was short of rotation, and look how far down her chest is. She did a good job to just give away a small deduction by taking one step.
Podkopaeva quickly jumping into her sweats to stay warm for the rest of the competition as the judges give her a 9.725. Time now for a routine on balance beam with our leader, Svetlana Boginskaya. After winning Olympic medals in 1988, she firmly established herself as one of the premier gymnasts in the world. At the 1989 World Championships in Stuttgart, she turned in great performances in the all-around and set a new standard for her sport with dramatic choreography on the floor exercise. It earned a perfect 10. And she also turned in explosive athleticism. Also a 10.0. It would be her first and last world all-around title. Well, after nearly a 2-year layoff, she's now back in the running for her third European title right now.
John, you know, during those nearly 2 years of laying off from competitive gymnastics, she was still involved in the sport, performing all over the world in professional exhibitions and really expanding on her artistry and her presentation, and it shows here.
Always someone who demanded the attention of everyone. And here she is again in the spotlight at 23 years of age, performing perfectly. She's really having the meat of her second life in gymnastics.
This particular routine she's done for many years, so she's very comfortable with the exercise.
She might not have the level of difficulty, but she has enough, and the others are faltering slightly, just making small mistakes, and she is making none.
This is where her experience shows. Double turn.
She is so aggressive, it's unbelievable.
She got a 9.825 on the bars her first event, which is her weakest event. So, boy, she's right in there for a shot at the all-around medal today.
Watch her go after this landing. She is one tough lady, let me tell you.
She's having a great meet.
Good for her.
In addition to the difficulty of this sequence, watch the balance beam. Watch how much it shakes. It's up on a raised competitive platform, and that makes it even tougher in competition.
Most people thought she was just in it for fun, for the icing on the cake. Well, I think she is after a medal here.
And Kathy, the judges award that routine a 9.775. Outside of Birmingham, our focus returns to the 4 events of the all-around competition. Time now for the long, elegant lines of Svetlana Horkina on uneven bars, who began the rotation in 3rd place.
This is a very well-constructed routine with unique elements and combination. Incredible difficulty.
She won gold on this apparatus at each of the last 2 World Championships.
And, John, she won it with combinations like that. Look how she transfers from bar to bar. A slight little mistake. Actually, she just didn't do the skill she had planned there and just had to change her grip. Big dismount. Oh, a hop on the landing. The routine was excellent, though. This will really only be a slight deduction. She was supposed to regrasp the high bar in mixed grip and then do a half turn and kip up. And instead, she just had to turn her grip back around and stay facing that direction. I think the bars are so bouncy, they're having trouble with the timing. Interesting technique on the dismount. And she uses that because she is so tall. At 5'4", it's incredible she can do this level of difficulty.
And she looks rather dejected, though the judges give her a 9.75 on that apparatus.
I think she was just disappointed she wasn't able to perform her new skill.
Simona Amanar from Romania is getting ready on the floor, an event where she won the gold at the '95 European Cup in Rome.
This routine is packed full of difficulty. She needs to be perfect here to stay in contention for the all-around.
But silent order.
In second, Lilia Podkopaeva, now on bars, where she won gold at the '95 European Cup.
And we have seen a transformation from the preliminary competition to today. She has become aggressive. She's going after everything. Oh, a slight leg separation, but in the past, the judges have been very lenient with that and not really taken off a lot. She needs a perfect landing. Oh, a little low. You can see her chest is right down on her knees.
She really struggled in the workout sessions here, and she seems to be really turning on, as you mentioned, Kathy. This was the weakest part. She was shorter rotation, and look how far down her chest is. She did a good job to just give away a small deduction by taking one step.
Podkopaeva quickly jumping into her sweats to stay warm for the rest of the competition as the judges give her a 9.725. Time now for a routine on balance beam with our leader, Svetlana Boginskaya. After winning Olympic medals in 1988, she firmly established herself as one of the premier gymnasts in the world. At the 1989 World Championships in Stuttgart, she turned in great performances in the all-around and set a new standard for her sport with dramatic choreography on the floor exercise. It earned a perfect 10. And she also turned in explosive athleticism. Also a 10.0. It would be her first and last world all-around title. Well, after nearly a 2-year layoff, she's now back in the running for her 3rd European title right now.
John, you know, during those nearly 2 years of laying off from competitive gymnastics, she was still involved in the sport, performing all over the world in professional exhibitions and really expanding on her artistry and her presentation, and it shows here.
Always someone who demanded the attention of everyone. And here she is again in the spotlight at 23 years of age, performing perfectly. She's really having the meat of her second life in gymnastics.
This particular routine she's done for many years, so she's very comfortable with the exercise.
She might not have the level of difficulty, but she has enough, and the others are faltering slightly, just making small mistakes, and she is making none.
This is where her experience shows. Double turn.
She is so aggressive, it's unbelievable.
She got a 9.825 on the bars her first event, which is her weakest event. So, boy, she's right in there for a shot at the all-around medal today.
Watch her go after this landing. She is one tough lady, let me tell you.
She's having a great meet.
Good for her.
In addition to the difficulty of this sequence, watch the balance beam. Watch how much it shakes. It's up on a raised competitive platform, and that makes it even tougher in competition.
Most people thought she was just in it for fun, for the icing on the cake. Well, I think she is after a medal here.
And Kathy, the judges award that routine a 9.775. Gymnastics Championships presented by State Farm. Outside of Birmingham, our focus returns to the 4 events of the all-around competition. Time now for the long, elegant lines of Svetlana Horkina on uneven bars, who began the rotation in 3rd place.
This is a very well-constructed routine with unique elements and combinations. Incredible difficulty.
She won gold on this apparatus at each of the last 2 World Championships.
And, John, she won it with combinations like that. Look how she transfers from bar to bar. A slight little mistake. Actually, she just didn't do the skill she had planned there and just had to change her grip. Big dismount. Oh, a hop on the landing. The routine was excellent, though. This will really only be a slight deduction. She was supposed to regrasp the high bar in mixed grip and then do a half turn and kip up. And instead, she just had to turn her grip back around and stay facing that direction. I think the bars are so bouncy, they're having trouble with the timing. Interesting technique on the dismount. And she uses that because she is so tall. At 5'4", it's incredible she can do this level of difficulty.
And she looks rather dejected, though the judges give her a 9.75 on that apparatus.
I think she was just disappointed she wasn't able to perform her new skill.
Simona Amanar from Romania is getting ready on the floor, an event where she won the gold at the 95 European Cup in Rome.
This routine is packed full of difficulty. She needs to be perfect here to stay in contention for the all-around. tumbling.
She's not done yet.
Boy, there is not a more impressive tumbler in the meet.
She really shows a good combination of power because she's incredibly strong for such a tiny kid, but great technique. Watch how quick she gets off the floor into this laid-out double-back somersault, and she makes it without any struggle at all.
She twists so beautifully. Watch this, out of whipbacks. This is a 2.5 twist. Perfect technique. And right into a punch front.
And the look on her face, a 9.762, a disappointing score for Simona Amanar, but a strong one nonetheless. And so our standings halfway through the all-around competition show that the top 5 athletes remain in their same spots. Boginskaya still leads the field. Our coverage will continue when we get back together later in the program with the action in the final 2 rotations. Exotic and focused, the eyes of Svetlana Boginskaya as we watch her second coming. Welcome back to the National Exhibition Center in Birmingham, England for more of the European Women's Gymnastics Championship presented by State Farm. And Boginskaya, the grand dam of the sport here at this competition, starts off the 3rd rotation on floor.
And choreographically, she is one of the best. What she has to focus on is the tumbling and these landings. Expression and feeling into her choreography. It's so remarkable that she's competing at this level 8 years after we first saw her in 1988. One very sad moment in her life actually came after the 1988 Olympic Games when her former coach committed suicide. It broke her heart. She almost quit gymnastics at that point, and it was the love of the sport that brought her back, and it's the love of the sport that keeps her where she is.
You know what else is amazing about her story is the fact that compare her with figure skater Katarina Witt, who, seriously, she's a threat for a medal today, and that is just great.
And Bart, the judges are taking her seriously, 9.775 on floor. So while Svetlana was dancing, Lilia Podkopayeva was performing her balance beam routine. She began the rotation trailing Boginskaya by 7/100ths of a point.
She was a little tight in the competition during the preliminaries and made a few mistakes. But remember, she started off so strong on the vault, it looks like she's being much more aggressive.
Oh, and that was the move in the prelims that she crashed badly on. She made it nicely there.
Every line is so clean. She really goes for the pictures. She really is a photographer's dream. for that very reason.
It was off the balance beam back in March where she fell and broke the rib, and yet today it doesn't seem to be inhibiting her aggressive performance here.
She performs one of the most difficult dismounts in the competition. Full twisting double back. Look at her fight for that landing. That's the way you win a competition. Incredible precision here. Very difficult and risky move. She does it nicely. Look at her grab the side of the beam. She was not going to give away a tenth of a point.
This is a good indication of her intensity here. This is the most difficult dismount being done in the competition, a full twisting double back, and she just fights to hold on to that landing.
Clearly, the grab on the side of the beam did not go unnoticed by the judges. She scored a 9.762.
And with that, Boginskaya extends her lead. We'll be back with the completion of rotation center here in Birmingham for more of the third rotation of the all-around at the European Women's Gymnastics Championships presented by State Farm. John Neighbor with Bart Connor and Kathy Johnson-Clark. Here is Svetlana Horkina on the balance beam.
This gymnast is truly mesmerizing, particularly on this event. She has an almost eerie sense of balance. Very long and lean, which she shows off and uses to her advantage. Beautiful flexibility. And wonderful control. Watch this. On even the most difficult passes, full twisting back handspring, looked a little nervous on that landing. As in all her routines, she has an unusual selection of skills and combinations. Watch this kick, right up by her face. Here's one, a cartwheel swing through layout. Oh, she was off to the side. Or you could see right as she swung her leg, she was not directly over the beam. You can sometimes pull those back, but she was too far off. Well, she has really looked nervous throughout this entire competition, even in the workouts. Watch this dismount, though. Oh, that is just a beautiful dismount. Here you'll see as she swings her legs through, she really has to swing it straight over the top. She is off to the side on the takeoff. There was no chance.
And Kathy, with that long body, she can't really do some of the acrobatic movements that people like Podkopaeva can, so she comes up with a clever move, a double twist, but off the side, and allows her to use her height to an advantage rather than a disadvantage.
And the fall cost her 5/10. Her low score, 9.262, will drop her out of the all-around. Here's Lavinia Milosevic. We saw her earlier on beam. She won the vault at the '92 Olympics in Barcelona. Earlier, her first vault earned a 9.812. Here is vault number 2.
It's called a belt, and she really needs to stay in the laid-out position throughout the entire vault. Now, in the past, the judges have been somewhat lenient with that. I'm not sure quite why. It should have been a half twist and then a front layout out. We'll see what the judges do.
Well, the score, a 9.775 for a 9.793 average. And so our standings at the conclusion of rotation number 3. Boginskaya continues to lead this. Welcome back to England. The Romanians hold 2 of the top 4 spots with 1 rotation remaining. They find themselves on the bars.
So the gymnasts, in a sense, are competing against one another. There really is a unity among the teammates, like the Romanians, who help each other to compete at the highest level possible.
You forget how many technical things go into the preparation for a bars routine. They spray them down with water, they set the tension, they set the distance. And now they're ready.
Milosevic starts the final rotation less than 15/100ths behind the leader. Her teammate just earned a 9.737 on bars. See how Lavinia does.
This is not her strongest event in terms of the difficulty, but she is usually very consistent and has just enough difficulty, like this release move, to typically score well. The best part of her routine is the dismount. She really needs to stick the landing. It's a double front. Very strong performance.
Kathy, it looked like the preparation of the bars actually worked. The Romanians were very nervous about the settings on the uneven bars because Gina Goggian, in the earlier competition, flew off the bars very dangerously. You can see this combination here with Milosevic. The pirouettes through to a very high back somersault with a half twist and a nice transition to the low bar.
And the score 9.837, today's high marks awarded on the uneven bars. Now our attention turns to Svetlana Boginskaya. She needs a 9.692 to regain the lead.
There is no way she's not extremely excited at this moment, which could help her on this vault. She needs a lot of power. Excellent vault. Pretty big hop on the landing, though. That was probably caused by that extra adrenaline.
The maximum she can score on this vault is a 9.9, and so you're right. She really does need to stick a landing if she's going to win the gold here today.
9.725. If she merely repeats that score, she'll be back in the gold medal spot.
No one performs this vault better than she. She gets right up on top of the horse and is so explosive. Let's see if she can stick. Oh, she tried.
Going to be close. Podkopayeva has yet to go on the floor. Boy, did she have a great meet, though.
This crowd really appreciates this gymnast.
I am absolutely in awe of this gymnast. Technically, this was sensational. Right on top of the horse. Look at the laid-out position, the height above the horse, the distance away from the horse. Oh, and if she could have just stuck the landing, but still, listen to the audience. They cannot believe.
Most people in the States know that she's been living in the U.S. for the last couple of years, training with Bella Caroli down in Houston. A couple of weeks ago, she went to Minsk and she started training with the team from Belarus, and she plans to stay there through the Olympics in Atlanta.
Score 9.737 for vault number 2. Her average 9.731. She's back in the lead. So now you can hear how the crowd's attention has shifted to the final performer of the afternoon, 17-year-old Lilia Podkopayeva. And who would have thought that the world champion from 7 years ago would be setting the standards of score to beat? The reigning world champion, Podkopayeva, needs a 9.825 or better to earn the title here.
The most critical landing in this entire routine is the first tumbling pass. And she has two options. I'm not sure which one she's going to go. She does a double front, and she can do it with a half twist. Let's see what she does. Either way, it's difficult to land. Perfect.
Podkopayeva won the gold medal on floor at the Europeans in '94.
A brand new routine for her, and so far, it is beautiful. All she needs is a perfect landing here.
Oh, she's going to get it.
What an incredible performance, and everyone knows it. She was very shaky in the preliminary competition, clearly feeling the pressure of her world all-around title and the expectation for her to always win.
And what Boginskaya has done today is remarkable. Even she and her coach know she probably won't win, but boy, did she come close.
And Bard Podkopayeva's score is now in, a 9.912, the highest score earned on any apparatus all day long, and the reigning world champion wins her first European all-around title. 4 great routines out of the 23-year-old Boginskaya. The title to Podkopayeva, but the most unexpected medal of the day to the 23-year-old Boginskaya. Romanians finish 3rd and 4th. Kathy finds out for us how Boginskaya compares this silver medal performance with her world title 7 years ago.
Yes, it's a bit different because when I was little, just, I have no idea why, but, I didn't put so much effort, but I was winning world championship, European champion, and all medals, was coming so easily. And, I was thinking, it's just supposed to be this way, I didn't put any effort. And right now, it's a hard work, and I understand what I'm doing. And, this medal, today, it was just, I think this was the happiest day of my life.
And a happy day, too, for the new European all-around champion. Lilia Podkopayeva declares herself favorite to win gold in Atlanta. And, of course, the Belarusian swan made a strong statement that there is room for 23-year-olds in women's gymnastics. Be sure to tune in July 6th when Wide World of Sports brings you the individual event finals of the European Women's Gymnastics Championships presented by State Farm.